be issued a musket. And these weapons are what we call smooth bore. And what that means is there's no rifling in the barrel. And what rifling is a series of cut grooves that spiral down the barrel of a long rifle. And what that allows is when we fire the round lead ball, it grabs that rifling and it makes the ball spin, which will make it go straight. And because of the spinning on that round, it can reach out to 300 to 400 yards. Okay, so the rifle is one of those weapons that if you can see it, you should be able to hit it. And Colonel Crockett was an excellent shot, by the way. So, but muskets do not have that. Again, these are smooth bore weapons. So the barrels on these guns are just a pipe. So when you fire the round, it bounces down the barrel. Now these guns are sighted for 160 yards. They can reach out to 200, 225 yards. But the ball is only going to travel straight to roughly about 70, 75 yards. After that, it's going to begin to turn, much like a knuckleball does in baseball. So 70 yards, you'll hit that man that you're pointing at. Beyond that, you don't know where the ball is going to go. But that's okay, because we're shooting at a wall of men. You're going to hit someone, is the idea. You should be able to hit a man at 160 yards. Now, the reason why the military prefer their line infantry using these guns over rifles, even though the rifle is far superior, is the loading time. A trained soldier should load his musket every 15 to 20 seconds. He is supposed to get 3 shots a minute. Whereas the long rifle, that weapon can take almost a full minute to load 1 shot. So what you have is a trade-off. You've got speed of loading with the musket versus accuracy with the long rifle. And on the battlefield at this time, this is about speed of loading. We want to get as much lead at the enemy as we can. Now, the muskets that were here, you've got 1795 Springfields that were produced out of the Springfield Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts. That is the first weapon made for the U.S. military and for the militias. You have another armory open up in Harper's Ferry, Virginia. So they had those as well. They're basically the same weapon, but that is a newer 1816 model. Now, the more dominant musket that's used in this battle is the British-made Brown Bess. That is the weapon that the entire Mexican army is using, and roughly half the men in the Alamo garrison. Now, these are all flint-lock firearms. So what you've got is you've got a piece of flint in the jaws striking a piece of steel, creating the spark, firing the weapon. One of the problems with these firearms is the flint has got to be sharp to create the spark. And also, when you open the pan to pour the powder into the pan, you're exposing the gunpowder to the elements. If the powder gets wet, it becomes useless. So, now we're going to cover some drill that the men in the Alamo garrison would have been doing in the compound this time, January 1836. We know the Mexican army is going to come back up here, we just don't know when. So we're drilling. So, because we got to learn how to fight together as a cohesive unit and operate these firearms. So right now we have the men standing at what's called order arms. We're then going to go to shoulder arms. Now this is the most common way of carrying the weapon. It's quite comfortable. Some armies are marching 10, sometimes 12 miles a day. This weapon is going to get heavy. So there's other ways of carrying it. One is to support arms. Now the lock is resting in the crease of the elbow. It's quite comfortable as well. And some men marching onto the field, running onto the field, will grab the small of the stock to give it a little more support. Shoulder arms. Secure arms. Now this is how we hold the weapon if it's raining. Again, if you've got a powder charge down that barrel, which you would pretty much all the time, if it's raining, we do not want that powder to get wet. So we point the barrel down and we're protecting the lock up under the left arm as well. Shoulder arms. Now the long pointy thing on the very end, that is the bayonet. It comes to hand, we'll go to arms, port. Charge, bayonets. Ah! Now when you have a full company of men doing this simultaneously, it's quite intimidating. And that's one of the ideas, is to scare the enemy on the field. So, and we're advancing towards each other on the field, so that lessens the time of loading. It can come down to hand. If we're being attacked by enemy cavalry as well, those horses see those long pointy things on the end, they don't want nothing to do with it. Shoulder arms. And one of the ideas too is if the weapon is not loaded, it's still a weapon. We can still use it as a weapon as well. So now we can fire these things with the bayonets on or off. We choose to fire these weapons without bayonets. So unfixed bayonets. Now we're going to go over the 12-step loading process of loading these weapons. Again, this is what they would have drilled on. It's a 12-step process, of course, but on the battlefield, we're going to load it as fast as possible. So we're just going to do a dry run right now. Squat, prepare to load in 12 times. Load. Open pen. Handle cartridge. Now the cartridge that the men have is a paper tube. It has the ball at the bottom. The pre-measured powder sits right on top. We carry 25 of these in the cartridge box, and they're crimped over. The only way we can open it is to tear cartridge. They're going to bite it off, spit it out, prime, pour powder in the pan, shut pan, cast about, charge cartridge. They're going to pour the remaining powder down the barrel. With the ball still in the paper, they're going to wad it up and stuff it in there. And the paper would be greased with the bear grease. So we wad it up, stuff it in. Now we have to drive it down on top of the powder. Draw rammer. Ram cartridge. They're going to pack it tight. Return rammer. Shoulder arms. They're going to come up to the left shoulder. That tells the officer that the men are loaded, ready to fire. On the field, that should take between 15 to 20 seconds. So now the officer is watching his men. He's waiting to see all of them come to the shoulder. Lets him know we're all loaded, ready to go, because we want them firing together at once in a volley. We have to fight that way with these weapons because they're so inaccurate. So what we're doing is we're putting a sheet of lead down at the enemy. That is going to increase our chances of hitting more of them. Of course, they're doing it to us as well. So again, this is speed of loading. So we see they're loaded. We know the rest of the commands are ready, aim, and fire. Boom. Shoulder, arms. We go back to the shoulder and we do it all over. Okay? So we're going to do that, folks. We're going to do that 12-step process of loading. We're going to fire it, and we're going to do 3 rounds at the quickest time. It will be loud, so if you have sensitive hearing, you might want to cover your ears.
Descent, arms. Shoulder, arms. Recover, arms. Ease, springs. Lodge, arms. Order, arms. Spring, rammers. Squad dismissed.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!